very special guest, Mr. Anil Swarup, the Coal Secretary of India. Mr. Swarup, what a delight and pleasure to have you back on ET Now. Thank you for joining us. And before I start the interview, I must compliment you and your team in the way how coal auctions have been conducted. I've met several global and local fund manager friends of mine, and they are excited, they are very happy, and they are quite bullish on the coal sector in India.
Thanks a lot for those kind words, and good morning to you as well.
Before I talk about coal auction and the strategy, I have a question for you on Coal India. That is the big stock today, and that's largely because of the policy initiatives what the government of India actually has adopted. So the question, sir, you can hear out and our viewers can see it. Auctioning linkages is big for Coal India and the sector. Will this permanently change Coal India's financials?
See, this is not being done in terms of the health or otherwise of Coal India. This is being done in the context of bringing out about transparency in distributing a particular commodity which is in short supply. We were of the view, as we got this experience from the coal block auctions, we felt that the linkages should also be given in a very transparent manner. The two fundamental questions that we were asking when we did coal block auction, and those two fundamental questions are good for the coal linkages as well, as to who should get it and at what price should the entity get it. And both of these need to be done transparently as was done in the coal blocks. So we felt that the same logic that we used in auctioning of coal blocks should be extended to linkages as well. Now I'd like to clarify here. We have so far done it, or we are attempting to do it, for the unregulated sector for the simple reason that the final product in the unregulated sector, the price thereof is determined by the market forces. And hence the input that goes into it should not be subsidized or given at a price lesser than the market price. And that is the reason we've gone ahead and floated this paper in terms of going in for auction for coal linkages as well.
Mr. Swarup, morning. So give us a little bit of sense of what is the kind of boost that we can expect for, in terms of realizations for Coal India.
See, as I said very clearly, this is not being done in the context of Coal India. If Coal India does stand to benefit as a consequence of transparency that the government wants to bring, so be it. So my job is not here to tell you whether it will ultimately benefit Coal India or not. My hope is that it will. But the objective is not per se to benefit Coal India. The objective is to bring about transparency. And as it happens in most of the cases, when you bring about transparency in the processes, the organization stands to benefit. So our hope is that Coal India will benefit. Now, I'm not an economist or a financial expert to tell you how much it will benefit Coal India. You have many of them on your show. Probably they'll be able to tell you better as to what will be the impact on the finances of Coal India.
So we have no doubts you have all the expertise to give us numbers. But anyway, we will leave that for some other day. Do you think foreign investors who were shying away from Coal India because of, either government policy or control issues, etc., will now return since the linkages are being done via auctioning, which is globally accepted, and it will just make things pretty smoother for them?
You keep pushing me on Coal India. See, as I said very clearly, our job is the job that we are trying to do. My hope is that it will positively impact Coal India. But that's not the objective per se. Per se, the objective is to bring about transparency. If it does positively impact global investors, we would be additionally happy. But our happiness comes not from the investment part. Our happiness comes from the part of making the whole process transparent.
Okay, so give us a sense of the timelines then, Mr. Swarup. By when do you expect the auctioning to begin for the FSAs?
See, it would be like this. We hope to bring in the final policy by 30th of June. And we are parallelly trying to determine if additional amount of coal could be allocated for such linkages this year. You might be aware that since 2011, there's been no additional linkage given either to power or to non-regulated sector. But this year, fortunately, as the coal production is growing and growing at a rate much beyond anybody's expectation, it's doing well, we should be able to allocate some additional quantities for auction of coal linkages, but it will be small. The real auction will happen when the previous FSAs are rescinded. That would be by 30th of June next year. The groundwork will be done much before that. The auction will happen before that. So that from 1st of July 2016, we do not have the existing FSAs, but we have the auctioned coal linkages.
Okay. Also, I was being told that the round 3 of the coal block auctions is planned for August. Now, is my understanding wrong out here? And if my understanding is not wrong, can you share some details out here?
Oh yes, you are absolutely right. The notification for the third round of coal auction will happen on Monday, that is the 8th of June. Thereafter, the actual auction will happen from 11th to the 17th of August, and the agreements will be signed by 31st of August. We have 10 blocks lined up for the third round of auction, and all these blocks are for the unregulated sector.
Sir, what is the plan in place to avoid the debacle like Garepama? How will this coal auction be different?
There was no debacle in Gare Palma. There is a particular interpretation that we had. On the basis of that, we took a view. I don't think debacle is the right word for that. There would always be some difference of opinion with regard to decisions that we take. Of the 67 blocks that were settled, if 4 of them there is some dispute, doesn't mean there has been a debacle. The processes were validated during the previous auction. They came in for appreciation. So we're sticking to the processes. And I don't think there would be any more debacles if you want to use that term. But if someone wants to contest it in a court of law, and if it goes there, then of course, when the court decides, we'll go by the decision of the court. But you can't call it a debacle.
We won't call it that. But Mr. Swarup, do you think the response of companies for the third round may be muted considering the whole controversy of bids being cancelled for some companies last time?
I think the bids were cancelled earlier also, so it's not a question of, it's a question of demand and supply rather than a bid being cancelled. As I said, out of 67 blocks, if bids were cancelled for 4 of them and rest of them were settled either through auction or relocation, then that's not a big deal. In a huge auction of the nature that we did, there are bound to be some areas where people may not agree with us, and that's where the court come in. So they've gone to the court and there will be a decision in that. I don't think that should be a dampener in any case.
What about the demand supply though? The very point that you mentioned, since the power companies will get satisfied or have gotten satisfied, do you think that because of lack of aggressive bidding from that sector or that space, the pricing of the auctioning would be a bit lower this time around?
See, as I told you, these blocks, all these 10 blocks, none of them are for power sector. So that's not the issue at all.
Okay.
They are all for the unregulated sector. The demand that we perceived in the previous auction was there is still 92 million tons of unmet demand, 92 million tons per annum. That's the demand is still left out. These blocks that we are auctioning, if I remember the figure correctly, will have an annual peak rate capacity of about 13 million tons. So there is a huge hiatus between the demand and supply. So I don't want to use the word aggressive, but I think bidding should be fine this time as well.
I'm going to talk about the big picture now with you, sir, and ultimately the nation and investors want to hear the big picture from you. What is your understanding about the coal imports for FY16? Now that more mines will open up, coal dependence will reduce. So progressively in FY17 and FY18, if all goes well, what kind of scenario are we looking at?
See, I am not working towards a particular number per se, but let me share with you what we are trying to do. The entire exercise, whether of coal auctions or the linkage auctions, or the effort that we are putting in to increase the production of Coal India is ultimately to increase the production of coal in the country. And as you might be aware that during the year 14-15, the growth in coal production by Coal India was 32 million tons, which was more than the cumulative growth of previous 4 years, which was 31 million tons. And the tempo has continued this year as well. In the first 2 months of this year, the growth is 11.8%, which is quite phenomenal going by the normal rate of growth which Coal India had about 1 to 3% in the past few years. So the coal production is increasing. Now the consequence of this would be that the imports are likely to come down. But it will also depend on the nature of the demand that gets generated in the country. If the demand goes up further, then irrespective of the increase in the production of coal, there could still be coal imports coming in. So I don't want to put my finger on any number per se, but my feeling is as the supply of coal increases in the country, the imports will start coming down. And we are hopeful that over a period of time, we should be able to eliminate import of thermal coal at least, if not coking coal, over a period of time. That is when we plan to reach about 1.5 billion tons by 2020. That's what we are planning. 500 million tons from the non-Coal India sector and about 1 billion tons from Coal India. If that happens, and we are hopeful that will happen, then thermal coal will stop getting imported into the country.
Now, assuming that Indian economy will come back. As of now, our industrial and manufacturing activity is low. Fresh capital formation is not happening. The coal demand will only pick up and the coal demand will only intensify. So there is good and there is bad both. We want the economy to pick up, economy will pick up, but the coal demand will also pick up. So, I mean, how will it work? How will the maths
Which is very
work?
good. No, I think that's how we are planning. Our projections of 1.5 billion tons is on the basis of 8% compound growth in the next few years, GDP growth. So if the economy grows at 8 to 9% in the next 5 years, there will be a demand of 1.5 billion tons, and that's what we are working at. So it is a win-win for everyone. In fact, the coal production itself will generate a lot of manufacturing activity in the country, and that will trigger further activity in the country. So, you know, it is all, one thing is dependent on the other. So whereas we would believe that there would be a growth in the country to the tune of 8 and 9%, which would require a lot of energy, and energy will require a lot of coal, and that's why we are working towards improving the coal production in the country.
Mr. Swarup, I want to get a little micro here then. And talking about Coal India in particular, the issues of transportation and dispatch are far greater than production problems when it comes to Coal India. You know, even rake availability needs a ramp up. What is your plan in place on this aspect?
You are absolutely correct. I think the key in the coming years would not be as much coal production as evacuation of coal. And fortunately, we've been very intensively interacting with Ministry of Railways. They are totally on board. They are extremely cooperative. And I'd like to inform you that we have identified around 60 odd railway lines that will be constructed in the next 5 years for evacuating coal from the interior areas. For this, we've already signed MOUs with the state government and railways. That is Coal India, IRCON, and the state of Odisha has signed an MOU. Similarly, an MOU has been signed with state of Jharkhand, IRCON, and Coal India. We already have a JV in Chhattisgarh. So the idea here is that the future construction of these evacuation railway lines shall be undertaken not by the railway ministry itself, but by these JVs which will be professionally managed, and for them it would be a priority to get these railway lines going. So we hope that we should be able to get this coal evacuated. I would also like to inform you that rakes is another area where we were very concerned. So far, around 230 rakes are being supplied by railways every day for evacuating coal. And this is for the production that we have as of now, around 494 million tons. Since we are planning to ramp up this production to 1 billion ton, we also plan to double the capacity of these rakes. So Coal India is investing money to buy these rakes and hand them over to railways for exclusive use by Coal India to evacuate coal, and they're looking at another 200 odd rakes. 34 rakes, the decision has already been taken by Coal India board, and order is being placed to railways so that those rakes will be in position in the next few months. So you are absolutely right. The evacuation is going to be a key factor in terms of getting the coal out to the users, and Coal India is very conscious of it, and they're working towards it.
Actually, just a couple of questions. Actually, one clarification and one question, Mr. Swarup. There's a lot of rumors, and which is why your clarification will be helpful. Would the ministry be buying rakes exclusive from the railway ministry or from private companies which manufacture these rakes as well? Because there were talks of that also happening.
You know, the money will be placed with the Ministry of Railway, and then they will decide where they're going to source the rakes from. Because we are not experts in procuring rakes. Rakes would actually be bought by Ministry of Railways.
Sure.
And then they will be placed at the disposal of Coal India.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. There are a couple of rumors floating otherwise. Now, my other big question is, I know you stated that any of the calls that you are taking are not for Coal India, but for the larger good of the coal sector. However, you would appreciate that these calls do impact Coal India business as well. Would I be wrong if I am assuming that the actions and the roadmap ahead would mean that there would be volume growth which is substantial and maybe even pricing growth for a company like Coal India or any other company for that matter operating in this space?
See, I don't take any pricing decision, so I would not like to comment on the pricing part of it. Whatever we are attempting to do here is certainly going to positively impact Coal India. But as I keep saying, the Coal India itself is not the end. The end is the growth of coal production in the country and availability of coal for various sectors like power, steel, and cement. But that's the objective that the ministry has. And as I keep saying, that such decisions as we are taking are going to certainly positively impact the finances of Coal India. But when you ask me how much and what are the numbers, I'm not in a position to tell you that.
Okay, so final question. We started with micros, let's end with macros. What is your assessment about the investment which will get in the Indian coal sector, both from the government and from the private side in next 3 years? There's hardly been any investment, sir. Let's be real, in last 5 years here.
You know, I would believe there will be investment, huge investment in the following sectors. Number one, when the production is getting ramped up from say 500 million to 1 billion, there would be a requirement of huge amount of machinery. So that would be one investment that will happen, perhaps happen in the country. The second would be when we are transporting this coal and we are putting up these washeries to wash this coal and take this coal around. That will lead to another set of investments. Then once this coal gets used somewhere, wherever it is being used, whether it's power plants or cement plants or steel plants, there would be investment coming there. You would be aware that a lot of power plants were starved because of want of coal. You'd be aware that a lot of steel plants were starved because of want of coal. So if this coal keeps going, then obviously more investment will happen in those sectors also. And I think the biggest impact will be in the employment sector, because with all this activity taking place, employment will grow in the country.
Right, sir. Really appreciate your time. And once again, I want to remind all our viewers that the way the auctions have been conducted and the way that corporate India has really bid for it, it just means that the rights of some of the clean assets is what everybody is wanting. Congratulations, sir. And I'm again going to compliment you on the way the auction has been conducted.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.